Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 62 of an Untold narrative. We re-feature creatives of all different backgrounds and varieties to tell their story and highlight their skills and their craft and what they're doing today. Today's guest is Tommy McCoy, the handsome son of a bitch who we have on camera if you're checking us out on YouTube. Tommy, I actually have no idea what your background is. I know you're co-founding a couple metaverse or NFT-based collaborative functions. And we got to know each other because you also co-host a podcast and you had me on. And I thought this guy does something creative, so we have to have him on and tell his story. So start with what do you do?
Oh yeah. So well, first, man, thanks again for inviting me on. You're also handsome too, so I want to take that and make sure I'm, giving back that proper due. But no, I'm just extremely grateful for being here, man. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast, the Coming Up Creative Podcast, with me and my co-host Mac. You did a fantastic job. I believe that was episode 9. That was episode 9 that dropped a few weeks ago. And I knew, after talking to you for that 30, 40 minutes or so, I knew if we ever met in real life or, we continued a relationship, that it would be a flourishing relationship. And I'm happy to be back here talking to you, my man. I'm happy to see all the progress you've made since we last spoken. And yeah, man, that's just, I guess just where I would have started is just how grateful I am to be here and be able to tell my story and be able to share with the audience of, kind of what I am, who I am, what I do, and, what I represent. So my background really is in a lot of different things, man. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, a little bit outside of it. I live in Arlington, Virginia, which is kind of the DMV area, if you're not familiar with it. I grew up here. I had grown up in an entrepreneurial environment. My grandfather was like one of the first to do be an entrepreneur, an African-American entrepreneur in this region, in this area. So I kind of grew up with that background. My parents are entrepreneurs. My grandparents are entrepreneurs. My aunts and uncles are all entrepreneurs. So I kind of grew up in that, go get it type of environment and mentality. And funny thing about it is I wanted nothing to do with it, because I saw it growing up so much. So from there, I went to school to be a doctor. People don't know that about me, but I went there I went to school to be a primary care physician. But I also played football at the same time. So my grades were okay, but they weren't good enough to get into Johns Hopkins or my favorite schools. So I ended up coming home, working for my parents. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to work with them because I've been fired before when I worked for them over the summers and stuff. So they were trying to figure out if I was going to take it seriously.
Right.
I ended up taking it seriously because I needed to make money and stuff like that. But I fell in love with it, man. I learned what it meant to be a true entrepreneur and deliver value to your customers. I was reading a lot, and some of the things that I read, I wanted to implement, and my parents gave me free will to do that. I ended up doing that over the course of about a year or so, and the company exploded. It took off. We, did better in that 2 years than we did in the last 10 years. So
what's like an example of that?
What I did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of probably the most basic examples that people will probably laugh at, but we were still doing bills manually, right? This is probably 2012, 2013, we were still doing bills manually. And I came in and I was just thinking to myself, there's got to be an easier way to do this, right? I remember our billing department be up all night. It's sending out hundreds and hundreds of bills and stuff like that. And I was just thinking to myself, there's got to be an easier way, more efficient way, and we could probably cut costs and save some money. And we implemented this automated process, and what took a day or so of hard labor and work down to about 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I saw the value that brought and how happy my parents were to do that. They're saving thousands and thousands of dollars on human labor, stuff like that. So, little small examples like that I would implement right away. And then boom, the company started to take off right away. I then ended up going down to Miami and doing this little entrepreneur TV show, which kind of led me out to different parts of the country, LA, back here to DC to start my own company. And now I'm kind of just I'm an entrepreneur, man. I dabble in everything. I start businesses, I run them. I've sold one before to other people. So now I'm in the metaverse. That's where we met, and I'm the co-founder of Overt, which is a local community where we help tell the stories of artists, help build their NFT projects, and cultivate community. So again, thanks so much for having me, man. I can't wait to get into this conversation and kind of see where we also kind of continue to have similarities and some synergies. So
yeah. There is a lot to unpack in that
dude,
introduction.
so much, man. Yeah.
Oh my God. So you definitely have this entrepreneurial tendency that's definitely in your bloodline. That's a
for
fact.
sure.
That's not going away. What do you think is a skill that you have that makes you super successful as an entrepreneur to just bounce from business to business or help other people start businesses? It seems like you're really connecting with people. Like, what's like a core skill of yours to thrive in an environment like that? Because it's not for everybody, right? Like this day, it's a cool thing to do, but it's fucking hard, right? So
it is hard, man. So I think I have the one unique skill I feel like I've always had is discernment and self-awareness. I'm aware, I'm ambitious enough to try new things, but I'm self-aware enough to understand where I do not want to be involved. Right. And a lot of people, they don't really understand how that dynamic works. So they get involved in things that they shouldn't get involved in. And they may not do things because they may not be ambitious enough. Right. So I feel like I've always had that discernment about myself and about other people to where my core skill is being able to team build. And I think if you put enough people around, really smart, talented people around each other, and you kind of paint the idea and the vision of what we want to do and what we want to accomplish, it's easy. I feel like at that point you're making a calculated bet rather than taking like a business risk. And I feel like that's probably what separates me from a lot of different people, is that I'm able to work really quickly, execute really quickly, build teams really quickly that are cohesive and work together for, the better good or whatever we're trying to accomplish. So, that kind of soft skill, and then the hard skills of just knowing what to do, right? Knowing how to, business to me is very similar. It's all, the business models may change from here to there, but it's still business. I think entrepreneurs, what they don't realize is once you start a business and you start adding more people and you start delegating tasks, the hardest part about that is managing the people, not necessarily running the business.
Right.
So, I think that's what my skill is, man. I can go anywhere, any place, see a business, see what probably doesn't work in it, and quickly, find solutions and implement things that can help run it more efficiently. And I think it's because I'm able to know and understand myself and understand other people pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's a huge takeaway, and you said that so really beautifully. You try, it's really like figuring out what the problem is and solving against it. And I feel like so many businesses are too busy focused on the problem and not enough on the solution. Whereas it seems like you flip the script and you're like, okay, I'm establishing the problem, but I'm going to focus on the solution or trying to figure out how to do that and navigate those waters.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I genuinely believe the issue is, in most cases, just people, right? Finding the right people for the task, finding the right people to do the job consistently. I think, if you put enough smart people around each other, there's nothing that we can't accomplish, right? I remember going back to what we had talked about in the Coming Up Creative podcast episode, when you're just like, man, you wake up every day and you're just excited to move. You're excited to do something. And I think if you put people like that together, man, you can do amazing things. That's why I'm grateful to be here. And hopefully this episode can proliferate and become something more than what we are, because I truly believe when you put strong people together, beautiful, amazing things can happen from that. And ultimately that's what team building is, man,
Yeah. What do you think, going back, that like the team building, you mentioned that you were a football player. Like, do you think there was influence of that, like from your childhood or something around a family?
Absolutely.
Around team building?
Yeah.
Because like it's rare to like find somebody, and I try to do this as much as possible. Like you always got to put people over product, right? And you speak about
Yeah.
it, but not everybody gets that. And so do you think that there was childhood relationships that you had or
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Because I grew up with 4 other siblings.
oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of my cousins around me. And sharing and community was always something that I was familiar with, right? And I'm not sure if you have any sisters, but growing up, you do. You're growing up with sisters. You gotta you gotta be really, especially older sisters. You have to get along and say the right things the right way, or it'll be bad for you. And and my sisters are always a lot more aggressive than I was growing up. I was kind of soft growing up. Not even gonna lie, I was a bit of a mama's boy, and I kind of still am. I love my mom. But again, like you have to learn how to cooperate in that type of environment, or it won't be fun. And I think from an early age, I was always involved in sports, to where I always believed that the better that my team is, the better that I will be. And I've always taken that approach into life. And like you said, not that many people understand that, and I think that's part of the reason why people don't achieve the highest level of success that I think that they can achieve, is because you can get someplace by yourself, and it may take you some time, but if you put like again, strong people around you, smart people around you, you can get there so much faster, right? And then you can enjoy it with someone else. Like that's what I like. To me, like people always talk about like, love languages and all this stuff. Like honestly, like my love language is fellowshipping and enjoying life with other people.
Yeah. No,
right. Like that's really kind of who I am at my core. And I think if you ask people that know me, they would probably say that as well.
super cool.
Yeah.
You did talk about also going back, and it was so bizarre because I didn't know this about you. You were on a TV show or something like that, so I had to loop full circle, and I had to go back to that because you're like, yeah, I kind of did this thing.
Yeah. So
deep dive into like what were you doing? What were you tasked to do? How'd you find the opportunity?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So when I left college, my last semester in college, I was pretty much done with all my core classes. Shout out to anybody that's going through biology right now, because it's hard as hell, man. Like it was a legit struggle for a long time, because you really have to sacrifice a lot of time, just kind of being in the environment of studying, not even studying. Like you just have to have so much peripheral information about biology and chemistry and all this stuff. So shout out to anybody going through that right now, because it's a struggle. And when I finished all that, I started reading some books, and it was mostly self-help entrepreneurial books and stuff like that. And I had refound my love for reading, because growing up I had dyslexia and I couldn't read, right? So I would memorize things, and I fell in love with reading because I had to find a unique way of kind of understanding what I was looking at. So I refound that, and I started reading all these books. I probably read maybe 30 or so books within the last semester. So it would have been like, what, 4 months, 5 months?
Wow.
Yeah. So I went through a bunch of books, and I stumbled upon this guy named Grant Cardone, who I really like. I'm not sure if you heard of him, but
oh yeah.
I ended up like, I don't even know where I saw it. It may have been on like Twitter or something like that. You had to put in some video or something like that. And I submitted the video, and right away they responded back and was like, yeah, come down and do another interview. I honestly forget how the process worked. But I went down there. It was held in Miami, and we did like this little entrepreneurial thing where we'd go in. We were there all day. It was like, if you know anything about Grant, he tries to get you out of your element, right? He's upfront. He's in your face. He's passionate, and he tries to kind of get you off even. And I wasn't for it. You know what I mean? Like I was cool. Like I feel like I'd been prepared for that. My parents had always kind of pushed me. My coaches had always pushed me. So I feel like I was prepared for that opportunity. I got down to the final. I think I was like the last 3, and I lost to some girl who ended up quitting. So, and then I remember it because I ended up losing. And she won. And then like a week or so later, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks later, Grant had hit me up on Twitter and was like, dude, like I should have hired you because the girl quit. Like,
No shit.
yeah. So it was fun.
And this was all recorded.
Yeah, it was all recorded. It was all recorded.
Wow.
So the episode is somewhere, but this was years ago. I'm not sure if it's still up online, but this was years ago. It was fun, man. Like it was a unique experience because I remember I flew down there and my hotel was jacked up, so I ended up having to stay at a friend's house. I had like, dude, it was just it was a crazy experience. Like my rental car was, I ended up getting the rental car, then the hotel didn't work, so I was in my car. Then I remember that I had a friend in Fort Lauderdale that I called up. She let me stay at her house. I didn't sleep, so I went directly to the show the next morning. It was just a wild experience, but it was fun, man. Like that's what kind of springboarded me onto like, all right, no, I definitely think I can do this. I can be an entrepreneur because if this is what it is and that's it, like I got it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's incredible. What an experience. And for those who don't know about Grant Cardone, I mean, I think he's a billionaire at this point, or if not a very wealthy man.
Yeah, he's a really fun, energetic. He's a really great dude, man. Like I remember there was a point in the, and you'll probably see this if you guys look it up. You'll probably see it. There's a point in the show where he's like making fun of me because my breath was smelling, right? And keep in mind, like we had been there literally all day, like from like 4:00, 5:00 in the morning until probably like late at night, maybe like 12 in the morning type thing. Maybe not that late. Maybe actually like 9 or 10 or something like that. And we had been standing. We couldn't drop the luggage that we brought onto the show. So like until you got like interviewed and like processed, we were all just standing in this line for like 7-8 hours. Right. So I had like coffee breath and like, it was just bad, it was just bad, but that's what he does to try to like get you off center. You know what I mean? He'll make a jab at you or he'll say something to you to kind of get you out of your element. And you have to, if you know anything about Grant, you kind of have to just push through it and get through it. And I think that's built me to who I am today because like, again, like if someone's like saying something about you, especially on like TV, you're just like, oh, but to me it was like, all right, I've been here all day. Like, no one's happy about it. No one's fresh. And we ended up having to jump in like water and like all this, dude, I'm telling you, it was nuts. But I loved it. It was a great experience. And I ended up running into him again at some point in time. And we had a really cool conversation. So dude, it was great.
Good. That's incredible. What a lifetime experience to experience early on as well, into your entrepreneurial career.
I was like, it was right out of college. So I had been like, 22, maybe 23. And, the people that I was competing against, they were, late 20s into their 30s. So I knew that because I got so far in and I was like the last person to be eliminated. I knew I was like, all right, there's something to this. Let's do it, man. Let's go on the journey and see where I can be in the next 10 years. And if it's been 10 years, I feel like it's been a success.
That's anything over 5, right? They say.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You mentioned reading a lot, and it sounds like you read one of his books, I assume. Is there a book, you mentioned something really interesting that I think I've shared on this podcast before, but I'll share it again, is growing up, I used to hate reading as well, right? Like it was like, I couldn't stand it. My parents couldn't get me to read. I would fake read all the time. I would just in front of them. Like, I just like couldn't stand it. And then as I get older, the past few years, I actually really enjoy reading because I'm reading things that I'm interested in versus back in school, they like force you to read this book, regardless of what your background is, regardless of what you care about.
Right.
They're like, here's a book, you're going to read this and then you're going to write about it or you're going to give you a test on it. And, I also read betterment books, entrepreneurial books, financial books now. And so I'm curious as to like, was there a book in those 30 books that you read in 4 months or whatever it was, a book that really stood out that you would share with the audience that like, helped shift the perspective or provide a lot of value in terms of grounding yourself or giving you, just a different perspective?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, David. I think that the book that kind of comes to mind, it actually wasn't mine. It was one of my neighbors. It was a good friend of mine. And her name escapes me. So I apologize. I apologize for not remembering her name, but I mean, this was over 10 years ago. Right. So, It was The Alchemist.
Yes.
Right. I'm sure everybody's probably read it. I hadn't read it. I hadn't read it at that point in my life. And I think it came at the best time in my life.
Mm.
Because I'm not sure if I needed direction or I just wanted to know that there was more to my life than what I'd been doing. Right. I remember just, the college life, man, this, drinking or whatever it is and kind of doing the same exact thing every single weekend. And I was over it. Like if you talk to any of my roommates at that point, they were like, yo, he has to go because I was frustrated and I wanted to leave. Like I didn't want to be in college anymore. And your senior year, you feel old, right? You can't go any any parties anymore. You're the old dude. So I was ready to go. So I think The Alchemist gave me, I think it created something in my mind that wanted me to go be on this journey, be on this, because that's what The Alchemist is. It was like this. It's a book about your journey in life and how things change and how things can evolve, whether you've already seen it or not, right? And I think that was probably the book that I think made the most impact on me. But a lot of the other things, man, like even the Bible, right? I've read the Bible so many times, and as I got closer and connected with that, it just it grounded me and it made me feel like I could accomplish anything if I truly wanted it and I worked hard enough for it. I feel like I could accomplish it. And I think that was the recipe for my success thus far, to be honest. Just really believing in the things that I believe in, and if I implement it in the right way, doing the right things for the right period of time, I think I can accomplish anything. And that's just I firmly believe that.
Wow. Well, that's going to get clipped right there. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, rewind about 45 seconds and re-listen to that over and over. That was awesome. Talking about kind of teaching yourself about your adventure and kind of going after and pursuing things. Talk about, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, Overt, and I believe you're a co-founder of another company too. I forget the name.
Yeah.
I didn't write it down. What do you think is the most exciting part of Overt? I know about it, but tell people about it. You mentioned the community aspect and the team building and the spaces, but talk about the project a little bit more and kind of what your goals and ambitions are, and then kind of what you do within it and what you're excited about.
Yeah, sure. So I did leave out my other startup. So my other company that I run day to day, like every single day, is a digital waste brokering company where we connect property managers, people, homeowners, etc., with local haulers. So I got into that because my parents are in the waste recycling industry. So it kind of was like a natural thing for me to create this like digital platform that allowed some of the processes that my parents offered to work a little bit faster. So that's what I do day to day. And I love it. And I love my team there. And that's what kind of gets me excited about, getting up every single day. The newest project over that you're asking about, what's most exciting about that, again, is just being around really smart, talented people, man. Like, I think I don't have an art background, and I feel like I am creative. I love to draw as a kid, whether it be like Dragon Ball Z or stuff like that. Like I love that as a kid. I love style and fashion, although I'm not too fashionable.
You're looking crispy on camera right now. What are you talking about?
I got to thank my parents for that, but I love the community aspect. I love learning about artists. I love learning about their creative processes. I love learning about what made them who they are. And I think that's probably the most exciting part about it. The things that we're building gets me excited because it gives the opportunity to more people to create and do their own art. And I think that is, going through this, because I had the podcast. This is my first go at it. This is our first season and we had just wrapped up. And I think that was most exciting about the podcast to me was finding new people and learning from them and learning about their creative processes and trying to take a little bit of what they do and applying it to my life.
Right.
And all of that to me is what makes it all worth it, man. It's like learning who people are in different and unique ways, and ultimately, bettering myself based off of their experiences. But yes, so that, and what I think what will we end up doing in the future with Overt is kind of just, you know, creating a platform for people to come create their art, build their communities, tell their stories, and, you know, push the conversation forward with crypto. You know, we're all from DC, and, you know, we have a perfect opportunity to engage, you know, politicians, you know, local local entrepreneurs, and local politicians to learn about what this movement is, learn about, you know, the people behind it, learn about not just the NFT art, but, you know, blockchain technology, and, you know, everything that kind of encompasses the entire space. And, you know, not be as reactive to it, and be proactive about it, and, you know, allow us to get in and educate people to, you know, the benefits of it, and, you know, what we think it's going to be in the next 5-10+ years. I know you understand that, and how important it is for, you know, people, especially lawmakers, right, to be inviting to what we're offering, because, you know, it is the future, man. And I think if we all get behind it, especially here in DC, it makes a lot of people's lives a lot easier than if they didn't.
Yeah, totally. If somebody's listening right now and they think they have entrepreneurial tendencies, or they're like, oh, I can't wait to start a business or partner with somebody. You've obviously partnered with somebody on Overt. How did you end up stumbling into them? How do you find a partner? How do you get into, did you just wake up one day being like, I'm going to build a NFT community and we're going to launch a project? Like, how did you get into this space? How do you find, like, what sets it up for that kind of, you know, connection point between people?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think most of it is just kind of being the person that you want to be around, right? And people look past that, right? People look past, like, because, you know, people always want to, especially here, right? In America, I'm not sure where all your listeners are from, but here in America, it's like, it's a capitalist society where everyone wants to move forward, everyone wants to push forward and do better things and meet bigger people, and network, and you know, be around more influential people. But they miss out on the fact that you have to be influential to meet and be around influential people. You know what I mean? You have to have value in order for other people to buy into what you're doing. And I think part of it is just being the person who you want to be around and meet. And I think that I am. You know, I don't feel like I'm incapable of being in any type of room anywhere. You know, I've sat with presidents, I've sat with, you know, billionaires, I've sat with all these types of people. So I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere where I go, because I feel like I hold that value. So it starts there. It starts with, you know, having skills, and not just hard skills, but like soft skills, right? Being able to speak to people, being polite and kind and honest, and being humble. And I think that leads you into rooms otherwise, you know, that you wouldn't be able to open, right? And in all entrepreneurial people want to build more things, right? They're builders at heart. So if you can get into the right rooms and sit down at the right tables, and be interesting, and be compelling, and, you know, have, you know, these intimate conversations about what you want to do and what you want to build, people gravitate towards that. And if they can see that you're not only legitimate and you have a proven track record and you're an honest person, then, you know, I don't see why they wouldn't want to do business with you, or in any way try to build something with you. And that's kind of how it happened. I met our other co-founder, Ryan. So shout out to him. And we met through a mutual friend, and we knew we wanted to do something because we're kind of like-minded. Like, again, like we have that entrepreneurial spirit. So we were like, yo, let's build something. You know, after we kind of broke ice and broke bread a few times, we're like, let's build something, dude. You know, he was like, and I was like, I'm all for it. I brought my business partner in, Abby, who builds the technical infrastructure for Overt. And at that point, you know, we knew we wanted to do an NFT project. So we brought in we talked to a bunch of artists, and we finally found the right fit, who's Matt Corrado, who's a local celebrity here in DC, man. Like,
yeah, he's awesome. A rock star.
Yeah, dude's awesome. You know, I didn't even know how big he was when I first got into the project, but, you know, seeing, you know, how everything's kind of worked out and unfolded over the past few months, I've seen how important he is. So that's kind of how the team got together, and they're all special and unique and talented and creative in their own right. So, you know, I definitely wouldn't be here without them. So that's kind of how it all happened, man. And it all goes back to just being, being worth a damn. And my mentor used to always say that, be worth a damn, bro. Like, you know what I mean? If not, you're going to get looked past. And I think a lot of people miss that.
Sure. You said something that's really tremendous and that I really value, and that the way that I try to build out my life is you mentioned the soft skills. And, I would say 10, 20, 30, 40, the history of business, everybody looks at the hard skills. They look at a resume, they look at what you've been able to do or what you can do. They don't look at empathy. They don't look at, kindness. They don't look at
Exactly.
being able to have a human interaction with somebody, and looking at their actual person, and
Sure.
instead of what's on a piece of paper. How did you discover those skills? Because I think obviously it's easy to look around and be like, oh, that person's a nice person or that person's not a nice person, but like
Yeah.
there had to be something to like build up that foundation in you. Was it an event of yours, or was it again going back to your family, or like what do you think really taught you like to include those practices in your day to day, even in business?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's when I was growing up, it's important to be, to fall in line, right? Because, if you have older siblings, they'll make your life hard if you don't fall in line. So like, I think obviously everything starts from your childhood, but I think, as I developed my personality, and I developed, just in general, right? I think I got the furthest with people when, I showed my empathetic side, or I showed my humility. But that doesn't say that I'm always a nice guy, you know what I mean? Because there's times where you have to put your foot down. There's times where you have to, have difficult and confrontational conversations.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not always super polite. I'm always polite, but I'm not always like the nicest person to be around, because in business, sometimes it brings certain qualities out of you, and you have to have those qualities or you'll be walked on, or
But
walked over.
you're
Right.
trying to fight for what you believe in,
Yeah. You
right?
got to fight for what you believe in. And sometimes, bro, people aren't used to that. Right. And they're used to you being a certain way. And if you're not a certain way, they think that you changed up, or that you're taking it personally. But a lot of times it's just like, yo, this is where I draw the line. This is who I've always been. This is my standard. And if you can't live up to that standard, then, we have to talk about, either doing something different or you going somewhere else, because that's who I am. I stand on what I believe on. And I'm not saying that I'm always right, but I think, um, when I do something and I lead with my heart and I lead with my, my intentions, I always typically am in a place where I'm satisfied.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, I completely agree. It's I had this conversation recently with somebody, and they're like, yeah, I know we haven't always agreed over the years, and I know we've gotten into it, but like at the end of the day, like you're a good person to work with. And I'm like, well, yeah, from my perspective, as long as I'm speaking in fact or what I believe is fact, and give you
Yeah.
rationale and context as to X, Y, and Z reasons, then I'm always right. So
Right, 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 right,
if
right,
those
right.
X, Y, and Z reasons are like your head and your heart, and maybe a couple other things, but as long as you're going back to your soul foundational beliefs, then yeah, it's you got to speak up for those things.
Yeah, and honestly, dude, like, I sometimes, again, I sometimes I'm dead wrong, and then that's when you have to be humble and be like, yo, I was wrong, I apologize, and I'm not afraid to do that. But I feel like when I go with my gut and I go with my intuition, it has never failed me.
Mm.
Right, it's never failed me. And you let me know if it's ever failed you, or anybody else. Has it ever failed you? Like, and obviously there's times where you have to step back and say, am I thinking about this the right way, or am I going about this the right way? Because we're not infallible,
Right.
right? Um, there's flaws in all of us. There's biases in all of us, right? But I think if you can get down to the truth and you get down to the fact, and you bring that and accompany that with your heart and your mind, and your mind's in the right place, I think it leads you in the right direction. And that's honestly comes down to discernment, right?
Yeah, totally. You did talk briefly about the Coming Up Creative podcast that you started
Yeah.
with Mac.
Mm.
why did you decide to start a podcast, and kind of why did you decide to do it with somebody else? Because you have this beautiful microphone setup, this beautiful visual. You got some LED for our YouTube watchers, some LED glowing in the background, and this amazing thing. Um, I assume your answer is going to be the whole team aspect, as you've already hinted at before. But like,
Yeah.
talk about the podcast, the why behind it. It's fairly new. Obviously, you just wrapped up season 1, so people go check
Mhm.
it out. But yeah, give some context as to like why another thing to start.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, it wasn't my idea. Um, I think Ryan actually came up with the idea, and he was like, I think we should have a podcast. We have Mac, who's so talented. She's brilliant in what she's done. She's also an artist, and she's a musician and has a wonderful voice. So if anybody hasn't listened to our episodes, go check it out. She's a wonderful podcast host to be doing anything with. Um, and he said, Tommy, like, I think I'd like for you to do it as well. And I'm like, me do a pod? Come on, bro. Like, I don't know. I'm not, for one, I don't really know much about art. And two, like, I've never done it before. So, and like I told you guys earlier, like for me, like I have to feel like this is something I could do before I pursue it, because, my standard and my quality is to do something at the highest level that I possibly can
Right.
do with that. And again, this is out. You know what I mean? Like once you do something like this, you put your name behind it. It's there. It lives, right? So I thought about it, but then I said, you know what? Let me give it a shot, because I do want to do whatever is best for the community, and I want to do whatever is best for our team. And I think I do have something to offer. Like I can talk to people. I've always felt like I could connect people right away. I can build rapport pretty quickly. And if we ever got into some sort of business conversation, I could also bring that side out to me. And a lot of people don't really know that about me. Like people don't really know that I'm like as entrepreneurial as I am, And so I said, you know what, let's do it. Like whatever, let's figure it out. And we ended up kind of, putting down some ideas about what we wanted to do, who may want to talk about. We knew that we wanted it to be centered around like NFTs in a digital space. We had already brought all these artists together, so we had people to speak to. And obviously, as we kind of went through and built out the overt team and the process and the community around it, we brought in more artists, and we learned about more artists, similar to like you, David, and we just took a stab at it, man. Like we found a studio, and we got in, and we learned quickly that it's not as easy as it. A lot of really good podcasters make it seem. So we did our homework, and we knew right away that we had like a natural fit or natural rapport. So that's what made it a lot easier, is because ultimately it's just sitting down and having a conversation with people. Yep. And I knew that, if me and Matt could sit down and have a great conversation with each other, we probably could do that, on a podcast. And it was magic, man. Like overnight, it felt natural. It felt right. We had, Matt was our first artist, or our first guest that we had on, and it was awesome. And once that wrapped up, and we did it with like one take, and, we didn't have any issues. We were just like, yo, we're on to something. So that's what we do, and I'm grateful for it, regardless of where it ends up being, or, however, I mean, if this is the last season, or the first of 50 seasons, whatever it is, right? Like, I was grateful for the opportunity, and I'm happy we did it. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, again, artists and creatives in general. And I think I'm so much better off for it. And I think Mac will probably say the same thing.
Yeah, 1,000%. It's kind of why I do this as well. I think you learn something new every time from not only your guests, but also about yourself, where it reminds you of a past memory that you haven't thought about in a long time, which I get really excited about, because it like just reminds you of certain things or memories or people, or, you talk about your siblings. Okay, then you start thinking about your siblings and how it relates to the story that's being told.
Yeah.
And you never know. I mean, we all do this just to kind of share this and put it out there. And there's no monetization behind it for an Untold narrative, at least. Hopefully you guys can get some money behind yours eventually. But I
mean, that's the plan, right? That's the goal. Because again, man, I think the bigger we make our team, the bigger we make our community, bigger we make our podcast, the more people we can draw into the
Sure.
space. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about educating and teaching people about crypto, not just NFTs. You know, I feel like NFTs are kind of just the first wave of everything. I feel like we want to be overt. We want overt to be the place where people go to learn about crypto, especially here locally in DC. Like that is our foremost vision. And I think the podcast gives people a way to kind of onboard that process, right? If you're hearing about your favorite artists talk about NFTs and what they're doing and how they got into it and how they heard about it, it's a way that you can, kind of lead people into what we're doing. And I'm not sure exactly the direction of your podcast, but I'm sure that's probably similar to what you guys are doing too, right?
Yeah, no, my number one goal is just to continue to highlight and share underground creative stories. I don't ever want somebody with a massive following or a blue check mark. That's not the goal. I want to tell the real stories of the motherfuckers grinding every single day that nobody pays attention to, because their stories are, if not the same or as good as the blue check marks, they're better. And
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, because and not to shit on anybody that has a blue check mark.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, 100%. Not to shit on anybody, but like you said, man, like these are the people who need their stories told. These are the people that need to be in front of a mic, in front of a camera, and tell people what the reality is. Because again, like, dude, we have this social media bias where we think people never struggle, people never got it out the mud. Like you coming from overseas and coming here and grinding and being who you are today made you who you are, right? So those are stories that we need to hear about, is how hard it was and the struggle and the plight, and how people almost gave up and how people almost wanted to do something else or ended up doing something else and coming back into the space, right? So it's all about just giving people the opportunity to tell their story and hear from people who you otherwise wouldn't.
Facts. Absolutely. Yeah. I have two more questions for you to wrap up.
Bro, let it run. Like I told you, I'm good. So
we've been cooking. This has been amazing. I super appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely.
First question: where can people find you online? Do you have a website? Do you have a specific link that you want people to check out? Yes, Coming Up Creative. Yes, Overt. You specifically as our guest today, where can people follow along on your journey?
Yeah. So I don't have a personal website. I probably should, but I feel like I don't want to take myself too serious, You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people with the websites are like legit, you know what I mean? But you can find me on social media. It's just Tommy McCoy. My Instagram, I think, is Tommy.McCoy.
That's right.
My Twitter is _Tommy McCoy. I'm doxxed. Like, everyone, kind of knows who I am in my community. And I'm not too hard to find, although I like to keep a low profile. Like, you may not see much personal about me, but I'm here and I'm in the space and I'm learning just as much as everybody else is. And I think I'm also a person who is an in-person type of person. So you're not going to find too much about me or hear too much about me online, but when we're together and we're fellowshipping and we're in real life, I think that's where I really show like my true value. So that's pretty much where everybody can find me. And I'm happy to happy to obviously share the podcast Coming Up Creative. Our first season just dropped, so be sure to check that out. And that's pretty much where I live at, is my Instagram or my Twitter. Really Twitter, because that's my favorite social media.
Yeah, Twitter is definitely on the come up since NFTs and the metaverse. It's been a beautiful.
For sure, man. For sure.
Final question for you. I asked this to most of our guests, almost all the guests of recent seasons at least, because I really think it brings a lot of people value. If you can give one piece of advice to anybody, regardless if they're creative or not, somebody in a rut, somebody stuck in place, somebody excelling, somebody looking to be an entrepreneur, what's one like golden rule that you always come back to, or something like a piece of advice you'd give yourself or anybody else if you had one to share?
That's, you know what? I'm so prepared for this question, David, because I mentor some people, and that's always the first question they ask me is like, what advice would you tell? Yeah. What advice would you tell me? Or, what single piece of advice, or, what would you go back and tell yourself if you were like 18 again? Right. And I think that the single best advice that I try to tell people is to stop listening to the majority of people, right? Find 2, 3, maybe even one person that you truly, can believe in, and listen to them and do everything that they do. And ultimately that just means change your circle, right? Change the circle of people that you're around, because the old saying, it's like, that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most.
Yeah.
People overlook that so much, but it's so true, man. Like if you just start taking note of, just looking around, be more aware, like be self-aware, but also be aware of other people. Look around yourself, look around at other people, look around at your family members. The people who hang out the most are typically the most are the most alike, right? So, if you want to be around more influential people, if you want to be around other artists, if you want to be around athletes, if you want to be around people who are in shape or people who are, exceeding at high levels, get around those people, right? First, become one of those people. And, it's not like it's not like some switch where it happens overnight. It's like a slow process of you becoming the person that you want to be. And I think if you can just get around the right people, that, it makes everything a lot easier, because, they hold you accountable, or, you want to live up to that standard, or, certain things just aren't good enough anymore when you're hanging out with certain people. And again, when I mean the right people, be the right people, because you don't want to hang around people where you're just like trying to chase this illusion or chase this dream that you'll never be able to achieve, right? Or trying to keep up with people. And whether it be, just superficial reasons, right? It makes sure it's the right people, not only where you want to be as far as like career wise or industry wise, but around people who are, again, are humble, or, have empathy and are kind and will treat you right and will reciprocate all the things that, you give them. I think that's my single best advice to get to offer anybody. It's just, stop listening to everybody, because 90% of people don't know what the fuck they're doing, bro. 90% of people don't have a clue. Right.
All of us don't have a clue.
I know. Yeah. None of us really have a clue, but like there's some people that really don't have a clue. Right. But, get around people who are, building, learning, making mistakes, and learning from their experiences. Like, don't hang around people who make the same mistake over and over and over again. Right. Hang around people who make mistakes, learn from their mistakes, move fast, wake up with love and joy in their heart. And I guarantee it, you'll become one of those people, and then you'll start attracting the people that you want in your life. And then at that point, it's like, bro, like you just wake up and you feel energized every single day. Obviously, like the rain comes, but the sun wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for rain, right? That's what 50 said. So I kind of live by that.
That's a beautiful way to end this episode. Tommy, you're a legend. I super appreciate you joining us on episode
likewise
62. Thank you for sharing so much wealth and knowledge with our audience today.
Likewise, man. Hey, I got to come back. I'm not sure if it's going to be 62 or 162 or whatever it is. I got to come back. I really appreciate the time. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, man. I hope you guys were able to take a walk into my life, a glimpse into my life. And David, I can't wait to meet you in person, man. I think I'm going to be at Energy New York if you're going to be there. So
I will be there.
We got to link up and fellowship and show love, man.